Welcome to Healing Your Family Legacy, here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Innovative, evidence-based recovery that helps to identify intergenerational trauma, allowing for freedom and embracement of the healing process. Today, episode 61, Recovery from Sexual Addiction. And now your host, Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee.
And this is Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee, helping you heal your family legacy. So today I'm going to talk about recovery from sex addiction. Again, if you have little children and you don't want them to listen to this, which would be understandable, please, remove them, get them out of the room. And remember, little ears do hear things. They might not completely understand it, but they certainly will pick up the innuendo, the emotional intensity, because if you haven't figured that out yet, I have some around all of these addictions. So today I'm going to talk about recovery. I alluded to some of that recovery process last week when I talked about how difficult it is for men to get in recovery for their sex addiction. And, in ways that are different, women's recovery from sex addiction is also, like I said, different. But for men, it literally requires rewiring their brain. Okay? And so if you're a man who's in a sexual addiction, I would tell you, your sexuality, your life has been hijacked by your sexual addiction. Now, your sexuality is different from your sexual addiction. Your sexuality is a God-given gift for you. And, it's not just to procreate. It is for you to have pleasurable experiences with yourself when you are caring for yourself, or with your significant other, your spouse or your partner. Okay? And that's true for all of us. We want intimacy. Okay? Human beings, we couple up because we're social animals, and we have a desire. That desire inside of us, we call chemistry or, interest. In our brain, that's just something we call sexual arousal. When we see for men, most of the time it's men, when men see something that ignites that sexual arousal part in their brain, okay, it's in their brain, they want it, okay? For women, when we feel warm and intimate and close, that's what arouses our brain and says, we want that. All right? And so intimacy is just when two people who have that attraction, start to share on a deeper level their emotions, their thoughts, their feelings, their desires. And that takes them to sexual interaction. That's intimacy. That's a level of intimacy we call next level of intimacy. And just to remind you, because I talked about this quite a while ago, and that is that when you have interaction, communication, there's like the first level of communication is you just say, hi, how you doing? You really aren't asking how they're doing. It's more like, hi, how you doing? And then you're going on your way. That's probably the most intimate level of communication. Then when you start sharing, like, how are you really? I'd like to know, well, I'm doing okay. I had a calf tear, but it's getting better. You share a little bit, but you don't share how you feel when you're going to bed and you're alone, or let's say how you feel when you see somebody you care about do something harmful to themselves, or, those deep level feelings those are the feelings that you share with somebody that you're very close to. And you develop that closeness by spending time, attention, and energy on that relationship. And for some people, like women, we have good friends that we might share that level with. And now I know that men do that too. It used to be kind of against the man rule to share feelings. But, now men share feelings and they share them with each other. And, that's fine. If you are a gay man and you're sharing that level of communication with another man, you might want to check that, because one of the things I didn't cover, but I want to just make a couple of comments about, and that is emotional affairs. It's like when you are talking about the feelings or the experiences you're having, the feelings you're having about your spouse to someone else, it's like if you're a man and you're talking about that to another woman who, and you're heterosexual, that can become an emotional affair when you really need to talk about those issues to your spouse. And if you can't do that with your spouse, you need to get some help to do it. Because the more you talk about how that person makes you feel and how they didn't do this or why they did that, and now you're talking about your spouse or your significant other to another person, that can easily move into sexual interaction. Okay? That's called an emotional affair. So you just need to be aware. It's like, I'm talking about adults acting like an adult. And that means that, I've been talking about, someone at work, about my wife or my husband or my spouse, right? And they really understand in ways that my spouse doesn't. And they really care about me and they really care. It's like, that is a danger zone. Don't do it. And I've had spouses of those people tell me that, in a way, the emotional affair can be even more soul crushing, because now that person knows about the relationship. And that feels like a real big invasion. Okay? So like I said, the person who is doing this needs to step back and get in recovery and ask themselves, probably with the help of either a 12-step program or, a therapist or, somebody. And there's 12-step programs everywhere, okay, for sex and love addiction, which that's what an emotional affair is a lot. But also when an emotional affair has developed into a sexual relationship, that's sex and love addiction. Sex addiction, like using internet pornography, being an exhibitionist, being a rapist, sexually assaulting people, frottage, those kind of things. It's like that's a different level of sexual addiction, but both require you to stop that behavior now. You don't wind down. You stop it now. Do not do that anymore. And I can tell you, from being a therapist for people who are sexual addicts, it is so hard. And especially with internet pornography. It's like we have these really almost Victorian realities about how people should behave sexually. Okay? And then you get on the internet and it's a freaking free-for-all. Then the internet pornography is what is lighting up your brain. And when you stop that behavior, and I would tell people, get ready, because for 90 days, even after you've gotten into, you've gotten through the first 30 days where it's so painful, you're not thinking straight, you're not sleeping, sometimes it affects your eating, Sometimes people can't even complete a sentence during this time because they're in so much pain. Okay. Then, once you get through the initial withdrawal, then you spend the next 60 days not being sexual at all. And that means even if you're married, even if you're in a relationship with somebody where there is a reasonable expectation of sexual interaction, you don't do it. Because remember, you're trying to heal your brain. Okay? And your brain needs at least 90 days to just calm down from any kind of sexual addiction. And that means that you're going to feel kind of miserable for 90 days. But guess what? You can get through that. Because by the end of 90 days, even if you are, dealing with legal issues because of it, even if your spouse is saying, I don't know if I want to stay married to you or in relationship with you, what I say to spouses, before you make a decision, give it at least 90 days, and I suggest to them a year. If you've really got an investment in this relationship and, getting to the place where you can feel like, okay, my spouse didn't mean to do this. My spouse, their brains and their sexuality was hijacked, probably by internet pornography. All right, being real here. And expectations like, oh, it's okay for men to act out, but women can't. It's like, okay, get that out of your brain. If you are in a relationship and you have decided that this is exclusive, it's exclusive. And it's like bringing another person or internet pornography or something else into the relationship in that sexual way is not going to enhance intimacy. It's going to impair intimacy. So if you're looking for intimacy, that is not the way. So I tell spouses, look, they most likely were not thinking about who they were going to act out with when they said I do. People are, they take those vows seriously. And I have spouses saying, oh, I took my vows seriously. I believe that. I also believe that somebody who's a sex addict took their vows seriously. I also believe that, for people who act out, say are rapists, rape isn't even about sex, okay? Let me tell you right now, rape and sexual assault is about power and control and acting out in anger. Right? That is not intimacy. It isn't even driven by sexual desire. Rapists are driven by rage, a need for power, and a need for control. And their sexuality is just the weapon. Okay? But their recovery is the same. They have to stop doing that. And it's still based in childhood trauma. All of these issues are about childhood trauma. And so if you are, acting out outside of your marriage or your relationship, if you are acting out with internet pornography, you're in danger. You're basically agreeing to allow your brain and your sexuality to be hijacked. And it won't bode well for you. It will blow up in your face. You think that you've got it all worked out so that nobody knows? You are wrong. If you think that there's privacy in those issues in our day and age, you are deluded and in denial. Now, what I would say to you is that as painful as it might be to stop doing that behavior, do it now before your life blows up, because it will. Now, for spouses, I would say that you don't trust your spouse or your partner anymore. I know you don't. And you start to wonder, what else have they done? And you start to wonder, what have they done to me? What I would say to a spouse, go to the doctor and have a STD screen right now. Because if your spouse or your partner is acting out, there's a possibility that you might have an illness. You might have a virus. You need to get that taken care of. You also need to have some support. What I've noticed with spouses and partners of sex addicts is that they feel all the shame. They feel embarrassed and ashamed, and they don't want to tell anybody. I understand that. And I don't think that, please don't tell your kids about it. Please, please, please. It isn't their issue. Kids need to have their lives as, because it's probably disrupted. You need to have their calm lives calm down a little bit, all right? But if you need support, yes, talk to a friend. But don't make it be a friend that also is friend to your spouse. Because at some point, if you guys pull this off and, recover your relationship, now what's that friend going to think? And how's that friend going to fit in? That's why it's a good idea to either go to a 12-step program, and there are 12-step programs for spouses and partners of sexual addicts. All right? S-Anon is one. Again, love and sex addiction is another. If you're in a relationship with a sex addict, then you're also kind of a little bit deluded about what you think's been going on. Because if you're in a relationship with a sex addict, you've probably noticed that he's not available. He's not interested. He doesn't care about the relationship with you. Or he wants you to do things that are, like, oh no, I'm not doing that. It's like you're going, where'd that come from? Okay? And your intuition has been telling you that this isn't who you think it is. This isn't what you think it is. It just doesn't feel right. So, Sex and Love Addiction, Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, S-Anon, go to therapy with somebody that understands the nature of sex addiction. Because if you walk into a therapist's office that said, well, your spouse has been acting out outside the relationship or is, on the internet wanting you to do stuff, and we need to talk about the relationship, they don't get it. First, there has to be recovery from the addiction. I would no more, sit down with a couple where one of them is a raging alcoholic who hasn't gone through withdrawal, who's not in recovery for their alcoholism. We're not going to sit down and talk about the issues in the relationship and marriage counseling. That's ridiculous. Because you got one person who's trying to control the other one's addiction, and the addict whose primary desire is to get their fix. And you're going to talk about the marriage now? You're going to heal the marriage? No, you're not. You're not going to heal the marriage until there is recovery from their addiction. And this is true for all addictions. This is true for drug addicts, alcoholics, sex addicts, gambling addicts, eating disordered people. You name it. If there's an addiction going on, it has to be, you have to be in recovery before you can start on the marriage. So I tell couples, okay, you woman, you need to go to this therapist or that therapist, somebody that I know understands sex addiction, and you, sex addict, need to get in recovery. And part of that's going to be working on your recovery with me. That means you have to stop that behavior, and you have to stop it now, and it's going to be miserable. for at least 30 days and then for 90 days. And I've had people say, so they're still married, because one of the things that spouses tend to do is that when the marriage blows up because of a sex addiction, they get in there and try and be sexual with the person because they, it's like, it's not even what they think. It's like, it's more like a drive to recover what they've lost or what they feel is they're losing. And then they get mad. So I would say just, sleep in separate rooms. If you can't stand the person in the house and you don't trust them, it's like they might need to go to treatment or be in an apartment or something, although I never suggest that myself, because if there's any thought that this marriage or this family might reconstitute, and it can't be apart, even sleeping in separate rooms is apart enough. And then let's get our grown-ups on board. All right? And if there's children in the family, it's like the parents need to sit down with the children and say, look, Mom and Dad are having some problems right now, and we love you, and it's not about you. Daddy's going to be sleeping in the guest room, or Daddy's going to be sleeping downstairs, or whatever. But we're going to be eating together. We're going to be, raising you together. We're working on it. And if you have any questions, you can ask us. But they do not need to know that Daddy went out and had an affair, or that Daddy, was like internet pornography. They don't need that information. Think of yourself as a child or an adolescent, hearing that from your own parents. It'd probably just blow your mind, and then you'd hate the parent that did it, instead of like, it's like, these are your parents. To pit one against the other is not good. Now, I will say this about acting out sexually when there's a marriage or a relationship. Sometimes there have been issues in the relationship that has triggered the addict into their acting out. But it's not caused by that. All right? If there are problems in the marriage, then what grown-ups do, and I'm putting that in air quotes, what grown-ups do, functional adults do, is they either sit down and try and work it out, or they go to a marriage counselor and work it out. Or they go to their pastor and talk to their pastor about it. They don't say, well, one's going, well, it'll work itself out. And then the other one's going, well, I'm just going to go out and, have an affair or act out or go to a prostitute. Or maybe I'll get up in the middle of the night and go look at internet pornography. No, don't do that. Now, what I have noticed is that when people get through these issues, and I try and tell this to couples in the beginning, but, it's like the partners are going, you're crazy, Dr. Bevan-Lee, and acting out partner, the addict is saying, God, I hope so, Dr. Bevan-Lee. And that is that when spouses recover from a break in the relationship, meaning that, okay, so the addict gets in recovery and then goes about building the trust again. It's on them. Okay, it's not on the spouse. If there's going to be any trust rebuilt in a relationship where there's been infidelity, it means that that person who did that is responsible for rebuilding trust in the relationship. Now, how do you do that? Well, it's easy. No, it's not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. And, I've said this before. Dr. Bevan-Lee likes simplicity that way. I like it to be as simple as possible. So listen carefully. You do what you say you're going to do. That's all. It's not big. It's not complicated. It's hard. So you say to your spouse, I'll never do that again. I'll never look at internet pornography. Well, I say, with an addict, for addicts to say, I'll never do that again, it's almost like your brain is saying, oh, well, we'll see about that. But you can't say, I am going to do my level best. I'm going to go to therapy. I'm going to stop that behavior. I'm going to go to 12-step program. I will do what you need me to do in order to reestablish trust in this relationship. And then the partner needs to think about that and say, here's what I would like you to do, and here's what I'm going to do. And then you hold yourself to those things. You hold yourself. That's what functional adults do. And then you have to understand the consequences. And the consequences, if you don't do that, are that you're out of here. So sometimes she says, I will give it some time, but I want you to drop, and I want us to have a post-nuptial agreement so that I'm not going to be left in the lurch if you decide this isn't what you want. I mean, there are some pretty serious consequences. But you know what? If you get in recovery and you stay in that process, you might not do it perfect, but you'll do it well. And you count on people who understand it to help you through that process, to lead the way, to be your guide. You'll do it. And I'll tell you what, I've had people tell me, I never knew that my life could be so good. I've had people who are still married after going through these nightmares say, you're right, Dr. Bevan-Lee. We are better now than we ever were before. That's what you get when you do it. It's hard. It's not easy. It is simple. So again, if you have any questions, please email me at healingyourfamilylegacy@gmail.com. You can also read my book and find even more out about this. My book is Iron Legacy, and it's soon to be out on audio. So stay tuned. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Healing Your Family Legacy here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. This channel is made possible because of listeners just like you. If you would like to support the channel with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. Healing Your Family Legacy is copyright 2022, Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.
Hey friends, Sean here, your Experience of the Soul producer. I want to take a moment to tell you about something truly exciting. The Soulworks online community, created by your host, Cynthia Alice Anderson, and available on the Mighty Networks app. If you're looking for a place where you can explore your spiritual path, connect with others, and grow in a meaningful way, then this is for you. Soulworks is so much more than an online community. It's a safe, inclusive space for spiritual exploration, self-discovery, and personal transformation. Inside the community, you'll find everything from uplifting spiritual studies to soul-centered growth practices, meditations, affirmations, and so much more. It's a space where you'll always be supported and never judged. The best part, membership is free. You'll have access to powerful resources, inspiring content, and a supportive group of like-minded people who are all on their own unique spiritual journeys. And if you're ready to dive deeper, there are premium options available to enhance your experience, with a live Monday night talk series and extended, deeper meditations. If you're seeking a place to connect, grow, and nurture your soul, we would love to have you join us in the Soulworks community and see where this journey can take you. Visit my.soulworkscommunity.com today.